Exciting to be here. Well, as Mark said, I am the founder and the faculty of the Khan Academy. We're a very bureaucratic organization. And as he said, I started off, just a little background on me. I kind of have a techie background, a math background, and then I sold out and I became an analyst at a hedge fund. But while I was an analyst at a hedge fund, I always had this little bit of an itch to teach, and no one believes me. But my motivation for working at a hedge fund, I didn't even know. Someone told me it's the best job to learn about everything. You get to see what happens to crop prices when an oil tanker in this part of the world disappears, and then that happens in gold price. That's a great job. And then someone else said, and it pays pretty well. I said, oh, but I was working I sold out. I was working as an analyst at a hedge fund, and I started tutoring my cousins in New Orleans. And we would do this kind of remote tutoring type of thing. And we'll talk more about the form factor, because that's what I really want to make this talk about. And I wanted to scale up, so I started making YouTube videos, and fast forward, about 4 or 5 years, and as Mark said, it's now 1,400 videos. I started just doing algebra, and after about 70 videos, I said, gee, that's algebra. And this was kind of a part-time thing for me. And then I said, well, maybe I could do pre-algebra too. And then another 70 videos later, I said, that's pre-algebra. I'll do trigonometry, and maybe calculus. And maybe I'll do arithmetic, and I'll do physics. And before we know it, fast forward, there's 1,400 videos, like Mark had mentioned. And the YouTube people told me that it's now the most used open course video library definitely on YouTube. More views than MIT and Stanford and Berkeley. And as far as I know, the internet. And this is all from, And this is all from one dude who was, a guy working at a hedge fund in his part-time with no budget whatsoever, really just starting to tutor his cousins, and now it's 60,000 video views and 14 million views, 200,000 unique students a month, and you can kind of view it as it's the largest school in the world. But before I go into the actual, why, and I want to make this kind of a conversation about why I think it's working, because I think it can be moved to other domains in all of our lives, I think, and I think it'll tell us something about how we learn and all of that. I want to show you a quick video just so you understand the form factor, and then we can talk a little bit about why maybe we collectively think it might be working. So if you start up the video.
4x squared squared plus 2 times the product of both terms. 2 times 4x squared times y squared plus y squared, this term. In October of 1805, the French Navy gets destroyed by the British in the Battle of Trafalgar. This is Trafalgar. It's actually written here. Trafalgar. And they get destroyed by Napoleon's good old friend, Admiral Horatio Nelson. Horatio Nelson. So this guy was definitely a thorn in Napoleon's side. Horatio, D8 positive T cell. It has the CD8 proteins on it. And this would be called a CD4 positive. CD4 positive T cells. P of XYI plus Q of XYJ, right? This is just a vector field over problem 34. A landscaper estimates that landscaping a new park will take one person 48 hours. If 4 people work on the job, and they each work 6-hour days.
So, and I'm curious, and don't feel free, I'm very open to the negative feedback. What are the things, if you just were to compare that to your experience when you might have been exposed to some of those same concepts, either when you learned it in high school or in college, or even if you've watched some of the other online video libraries out there, what are the things that stood out to you that were a little different? Any?
I can fast forward.
Yeah, no, that's actually a huge, and I think that's online video in general. And the comment was that you can fast forward, and I was going to talk about this later, but there's this whole notion that anything online is kind of just a nice to have. It's not as good as a live interaction, and I think that assumption is something that, this is bias that we always have in life, that something for free that has zero incremental delivery cost has got to be worse than something that's really expensive and hard to do. And if you think about it, I mean, there is value of being in a room together. I think, something like gel, it's like a shared experience. We can get inspired together. But if it's like a broadcast lecture and it's kind of mundane and no one's really, there's not a lot of interaction, it's an interesting question to say, gee, is video in any way less good than an actual live interaction? And because you can pause, you can repeat it, you don't have to take notes. It is actually something that, as far as I can tell, better in every way. You watch it on your own terms, whenever you want to watch it. If you don't understand a concept, you can watch a previous video. You can look on Wikipedia and see what that word meant. So yeah, that is one of the, and I would say that's general of all online video, not just the Khan Academy. Any other things that just kind of popped out when you saw those videos? Yep.
You didn't have to worry about pleasing the teacher. In other words, you weren't distracted by the social interaction, you're just listening for your own benefit.
Right. So the comment was that you're not worried about pleasing the teacher, about you're just doing it for your own benefit. And that's actually, when I started like my teaching career, and it's full time now, I quit my job in September, I was tutoring my cousins and I was doing it remotely. They were in New Orleans, I was in Boston, now I'm in Northern California. And they were doing really well, but then I started doing these YouTube videos, and I assumed it was not going to be as good as the live interaction. I assumed, oh, this is just a nice to have for them. Maybe other people will watch it, and I kind of said, oh, it's a little bit of a legacy. Maybe my great-grandchildren might be able to learn calculus from these videos. So I just thought it would be a nice thing to put out there. But the first point of feedback I got from my cousins, and it was a little bit of a backhanded compliment, is that you're better on YouTube than you are in person. And after a little bit of, not being defensive about that, I think they were saying exactly this. When we had the live interaction, the one-on-one session, that's stressful for the student. That's stressful. I was, oh, do you get this? And they might kind of get it. It might be like an 80% understanding of it, but they don't want to waste my time. And I'm their cousin. I'm volunteering. And they don't want me to judge them in any negative way. So, oh, yeah, I get it. But that's bad information for me. I'll move on to the next concept. They're stressed out the whole time. They want this whole interaction to be over. But with this, you're not afraid to ask the question. The question literally is, you go to that, as Mark said, there's 1,400 videos. You're like, you know what, I'm a little shaky on negative numbers, even though I'm in calculus. There's no way in a traditional classroom that you'll have the guts to raise your hand and say, wait, what a negative times, why is that you can't do that. But now, YouTube, you can kind of pause the video and say, let me go watch the video, just to make sure I understand that properly. Any other things popped out? Right here. Yeah, so the comment was that colors, and I repeat a lot, and I cater to different learning styles. And I'll throw out another one. I think it's related. Is that you don't see me, you don't see the teacher, and I'll tell you, but you can hear me, exactly. And I'll tell you why I did it. I want to make it sound like I'm this grand designer, and I had all of this interesting ideas in mind. I did it initially because I did not have a video camera. And I thought, well, when I did it with my cousins in New Orleans, they didn't see me either, but it seemed to be working with them. All they heard was my voice on the speakerphone, and we had like a shared notepad. We were using Yahoo Doodle at the time, and if I wrote something, they would see it. If they wrote something, I would see it. And we made I just like, I don't know if there's like a movement against or for whiteboards, but I hate whiteboards. I think black is just like, there's this emptiness. It's just like the universe, and then you can start kind of putting in little bits of, and it seems like such a subtle thing, but for me, like, that one video where you see the white background, it's kind of like a struggle for me. I need that clean, like literally a clean slate. But I did it because it worked with my cousins, and I didn't have a video camera. But as soon as I put it out there like that, the feedback I immediately got from people on YouTube is, it feels intimate. Even though they know that it's a recording and I'm not really there, they said it actually feels like you're sitting next to me, tutoring me. It doesn't feel like, think about the other experience where I'm all the way over here, at a chalkboard, and the next step, and I'm projecting over to you, and you're distant, you're not in any way connected with the teacher. When you have kind of this voice in your head, it feels intimate. And actually some people have said it feels even more. It feels like not only are we sitting next to you, it feels like you're actually in my brain. That and even more, I've actually gotten several people say that when I take the exam, as soon as it like, when I think in other domains, I have a normal voice. But as soon as I see a calculus problem, it's like, well, and the next, and you hear, so it's, any other notions? Yeah.
The audio is consistent, unlike in a classroom where, the teacher turns around and you can't hear.
Oh yeah, no, that's another thing. That's that is actually one of my motivations for doing is before I started, I looked at a lot of the stuff. I'm not the first person putting videos. I looked at the MIT stuff, which I think is great, and I was like, it was the video camera was at that same seat. I went to MIT, and it's like the same seat I used to sit in and like fall asleep in, and like. And sometimes, and I think it's tremendous what they did. I don't know if anyone realizes the history of this open course thing. In like 2000 or 2001 it was all happening. Every other university was thinking about a for-profit model, distance learning. MIT said, no, everything's for free. So I think it's like this hugely awesome thing they did, but it's hard to see what's going on in the classroom. And the other feedback I get is that the lecture is actually distracting. We naturally want to engage with the human eyes and the hands, and that's what you want to look at. You don't want to look at the math. And when the professor's there, that's what you look at, and you get disengaged and all. Any other, here you go. Go at your own speed, exactly. You can go exactly. Some people have actually, they've written little apps that actually will speed up or slow down the actual, without changing the pitch.
Well, I mean, class and class.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's the thing that shocked me. I thought this is for my cousins, they can fill in their blanks. But over and over again, I got letters from gifted students and parents saying that this allowed my students, and people with learning disabilities, and people with attention deficit disorder saying that, and so it's all of these things that just kind of fell into place. And I'll tell you, kind of the other thing that I think makes it very different is it's just conversational. And some of it is because the form factor is it feels like I'm next to you. I get to kind of chat about it with you, as opposed to being pedantic and sitting at a board. And the next step, I can be very natural. And the other, a lot of people say, how do you prepare for these videos? And can I have a transcript, or can I have and what I say is, there is none. Like, when I turn on the video, it is literally a train of thought process. It isn't scripted in any way. And I started doing that, actually, out of laziness. It's for my cousins. What do I care? Actually, a few of the videos, I actually answer telemarketer calls during the video. But the takeaway, and all of these things I've done out of laziness, I now can say, oh, this is brilliant and all. But the takeaway that people love to see, and you never get to see it anywhere else. I mean, just like reflect back on your entire education career, everything you saw was the finished product. The professor, when they teach that concept to you, they had done that problem 20 times before. They reviewed the solution manual, and they just give you the finished product. They just like, oh, you're an idiot if you just don't immediately do step A, B, C, and D. But when you watch these videos, and I guarantee you like 95% of the videos, when I'm doing it on screen, I have never seen the problem before. And every now and then, I make mistakes. I forget a negative sign, or I go down a path that was not the right path. This is probably the single issue I get the most emails about. People say it makes me comfortable with mathematics. It allows me to see the art. It allows me to see someone who looks like they know what they're doing, but they too stumble every now and then. They sometimes go down the wrong path, and you can kind of see out loud the thought process of going through this. And the one thing, Mark said, tell us about what you really think makes Khan Academy stand out, and why it seems to have struck a chord with people. And I think it's kind of an artifact of how my own brain works. I don't know whether I was exposed to something or this is just how I learned to learn, but I cannot process anything unless it's distilled down into really, really, really simple nuggets. And it's almost obvious by the time, and it was almost difficult when I was in school to be like, if you just gave me a formula and said, just apply that formula, steps A, B, and C, my brain just started, it can't do it. And so I would like fall behind in class, because I'd wanted to play with the equations and make connections and understand why it was interesting and what it's really saying about the universe. But later on, obviously, that became a huge asset, because in 11th grade, when you get exposed to a concept, you're like, oh, well, I invested all that time in 8th grade. And this concept that they're saying is a new concept, that's just that 8th grade concept, and they're just rebranding it a little bit, and now it just looks like this 11th grade concept. And while this is, all my peers are who are, smarter than me, are getting stuck memorizing things and not knowing what they're doing, and then forgetting things the week after. It's like, this is frustrating. So if I had to say the single biggest goal in the Khan Academy is to try to deliver things the way I wish it was delivered to me. you get the intuition from the beginning. I will not make a video unless I have an intuition on the concept. The best example is on entropy. I'm not like, when I went through my education, I wasn't like the thermodynamics jock. So I didn't really, I could do the problems and I could get the question right. But I said, I'm going to make a video on entropy. And I was like, I know how to, the steps, but none of these textbooks are really doing the job, doing the trick, and really letting me know what entropy really is. And I have just a suspicion that they're not saying, so I literally, I took 2 weeks off, and I just pondered it. And I called every professor, everybody, everyone who I could talk to, and I said, let's go have a glass of wine about entropy. And after about 2 weeks, it clicked in my brain. I was like, now I'm ready to make a video on entropy. So if there's one takeaway from the Khan Academy is that it's just narrowly focused on intuition. And just to show you, and really reinforce the point that I think, and it wasn't obvious from the get-go, that this is not just a nice to have. This isn't just something that might make an A- student into an A student or an A+ student. I want to read some of the letters. And I get on the order of now, I get like a couple hundred letters a day from students and teachers and homeschoolers around the world now. The content's actually being distributed in offline servers into Ethiopia and places where they can't even find teachers. But these comments, I mean, some of them are nice and funny and simple, but some of them really speak to there's a deep hunger for this type of thing, and it's just not being addressed. This is a comment on a calculus video. First time I smiled doing a derivative. This person did a derivative, and then they smiled. I remember AP Calculus. No one was smiling. And then the next comment, this is in reply to that response. Same thing here. I actually got a natural high and a good mood for the entire day. Since I remember seeing all of this matrix text in class, and here I'm all like, I know Kung Fu. And the underlying theme here, I used to think when I went through my career that only like math geeks like me and Mark, we're the only type of people that like to understand things, that everyone else just wants to, but the takeaway here is that everyone, I don't care whether you're the math geek or whether you are the kid who's about to drop out or you're the kid who thought they hated mathematics, when you actually learn something, really learn something, not just learn the steps and jump through the hoops, when you really learn something, it's arguably the highest high any human being can have. And you see it, I mean, this is another one. This is an excerpt. My eldest kid is dancing around in my room here because she is so excited that she finally found someone that teaches like this. She did a math problem, and then she danced. Now this, I was working as an analyst at a hedge fund, and the site traffic started to take off, and I said, gee, I would tell my wife, this is so exciting, and I want to do this, and people are writing me letters, but it wasn't making, but I said, I have some savings, I could quit, and I was really on the edge about this. I said, I really want to do this, but I can't figure out, and then I got this letter. And this letter, and I'll read an excerpt of it, to me, I mean, I was like, if I only got this letter, this would be worth it, but there could be a million people like this, and this person's the only it's Mr. Khan, no teacher has ever done me any good. This may sound harsh, but I mean it quite literally. I was force-fed medication to keep from talking and chastised for not speaking when called on. About 5 years ago, my family collected enough money to move from where I was born so I could have a chance at having an education and living a real life. But without a real mastery of elementary math, I was slow to progress. I am now in college and learning more than I ever have in my life. But an inadequate math background has been holding me back. I found the Khan Academy in June of 2009, so it's like a year ago. Right after I completed Math 141, a college algebra course. I've spent the entire summer on your YouTube page, and I just wanted to thank you for everything you're doing. This is a godsend. Last week, I tested for a math placement exam, and I'm now an honors Math 200. Now, the next sentence is the one that really got me. This isn't a placement exam. This isn't on like the regular exam you have in class where you know what you're studying for. This is like all of mathematics. This is on the placement exam, the entrance placement exam. No question was answered incorrectly on the placement exam. This was a kid who had basic deficiencies in mathematics, and they watched YouTube videos for a summer, and they did not get one question wrong. I can say without any doubt you've changed my life and the lives of everyone in my family. I mean, you read that, you're like, okay, screw the hedge fund world. So that I'll thank all of y'all.